Instagram Live. How are you today, everybody? All right, guys, today is a very special day. We got dogs barking in the background. We got Jimi Hendrix singing a little something. All right, Jimmy, sweet music. All right. Hey, from Texas, how you doing? Hi, Sandy, you Texan. Hi from London. Boom, we got the UK representing today. So today is a very special day for a lot of different reasons. It's May 8th. It happens to be my beautiful wife's birthday. Guys, ready? Say hello, Julianne.
Hi, everybody. Happy Mother's Day weekend.
Happy Mother's Day weekend. All right. She's like an elfin creature. She's shy of the camera, even though she was an actress for so long, and very good. So we're gonna do a special. I'm gonna do a special with you guys today. I'm gonna kind of keep it more just between a friend of mine and I, Nikki DeLoach, who you guys know and who you guys love, who I've known for a very, very long time, and we'll talk a little bit about how we got to know each other.
She did a shower for me, for Caleb.
Yeah, she did Caleb's baby shower. She was one of the first people to hold Caleb as a baby.
Yeah.
So she is a really close person, near and dear to us as a family. And she has this unbelievable resume on psychology and understanding the human mind. She's extremely intelligent when it comes to talking about mental health. She's got a lot of great advice. And so I wanted to bring her on today because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And given the quarantine, I think a lot of us could use just a little bit of conversation about what it means to be mentally healthy. There is an amazing website right now. If you're online doing Twitter or Instagram and you happen to be going through, whose birthday is it? Hey, Shahan Garova 98. Happy birthday to you
happy
as
birthday
well.
to your nanny.
And my nanny, my little sweet nanny, who you guys have all seen dance. She's 93 today. May 8th. So my wife and my nanny have the same birthday, which I think is pretty special.
Happy birthday, nanny!
So, Mental Health Awareness Month. Man, I was just baking a cake, which is why I was a minute late to this Instagram Live thing. So my apologies, everybody. I was doing a whole thing today. We got a cake going. We got a little birthday room going. We're going live here in a minute. There is an amazing website right now that talks about mental health, anxiety, depression, and you could go on and you could read all the things that there are to read about it, and you could take little tests. You can see if you've got anxiety, you can see if you've got depression. Yeah, and I wanted to read real quick a letter. My wife wants her phone back, and the letter's a photograph of her phone. So this week I got an email, and it was an interesting one, and it kind of speaks exactly to the heart of what's going on. I wrote a poem the other day, a little haiku on Twitter. I'm doing these haikus one a day, and I said something to the effect that you don't know what's going on inside my head. She laughs, and she laughs to hide it. And I got this really beautiful response. She said, how often I hide behind laughter. I realize that I do it all the time, make jokes of things to hide how I'm really feeling. It's easier than telling people the truth. If someone says, I have a mental health problem, most people judge you on your illness rather than getting to know you and finding out you are perfectly normal, but that you have an illness. Mine being, she can't go out, so she's agoraphobic. They never try to find out what caused the problem or try to understand, so you have to avoid telling people, and over time you become the person everyone sees, but that isn't the real you. If I asked friends who've only known me for a short time to describe me, they would say I'm outgoing and like to laugh, but really I'm very shy, and I prefer to listen rather than talk. And at one time I never have done this, but suppose because I know we'll never meet face to face, it's easier. So she's being super honest via these DMs. I look forward to tomorrow. Take care. So I think she's out there watching. Hi, if you are. And so I just wanted to open up the dialogue today, and I wanted to talk about what it means to have mental health. It's something that I have prayed for my children from the day they were born. At night, I will pray for their physical health. I will pray for their spiritual health. I will pray for their mental health. I literally will lay hands on their head and say, Lord, I just pray for their mental health as they grow up, their psychological health and their well-being. I will pray for their academic health and their artistic health and their athletic health. And I said, I said academic health, right? Because that is important in our family. And so it's a part of the whole picture. And I think that people could look physically perfect on the outside, but have a whole mess of things going on the inside. And I know that quarantine is just wreaking havoc with a lot of people. And so it's a wonderful coincidence that May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and quarantine are falling at the same time, because it's a really wonderful time to bring attention to that. And I think it's an honest conversation to have. So with no further ado, I'm going to see if my friend is ready to rock and roll. Let's see if she's out there in the world. Oh man, my phone. Sometimes this phone only serves to make me feel like I am an old guy. All right, let me see if we can go live. Okay, here we go. Nikki, I'm coming at you, girl. Let's see if modern technology works these days for this old bearded grizzly fella.
We did it!
Nikki! Man, you look as bright as a rainbow. How you doing, kiddo?
Hey, look at your beard!
I know, man. Isn't it crazy?
It's awesome.
It's funny. I never get a chance to grow a beard my entire adult life. I've always had to shave for a job.
Dude.
And so now I'm like, well, guess what? I can grow a beard, so I'm doing it just for.
It looks so awesome. Can we sing happy birthday collectively to your beautiful and amazing wife?
Yeah. Hey, Julianne. Nikki wants to say something to you, and I'm gonna sing with her. All right, ready?
Hey guys, ready? 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Julianne.
So pretty.
Happy birthday to you and many more. Happy birthday!
I forgot. You're a singer.
Listen, well, I still
you
have.
Me. You started in singing. Like you're like a Mickey Mouse Club.
I was, and also I still have your birthday in my calendar. So today when we were going Instagram live, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Julianne's birthday. And then of course your husband who adores you, it's the first thing you talked about, but it's like still in my calendar.
I love that.
Every year shows up.
I love that. Well, you have to promise me that I will get my Mickey Mouse beautiful voice song every year from here on out.
From here on out, I swear, I promise.
That was pretty.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I hope.
I was ready to sing with you. You drew that out. I was like, whoa, this is the slow take.
You and Chris need to do a Hallmark like singing, you're like a couple that like sings.
We really do. We used to do it on set on North Shore. He would sit there with his ukulele. Do you remember?
Yeah. I have these amazing videos that I just found on my computer of you and I sitting on set, and me like you'll be in your chair reading a book, like being a professional sitting there, and I'll walk up and be like. And you're like, you were such a good audience. I was such a dork. But yeah,
you were
and then there were times where you and I would like duet. We had a whole thing.
You're the perfect person to have on any set, to be honest.
He's a happy little thing.
You entertain throughout. You find the places where people may need a little bit of uplifting, and you kind of go to them, and like you intuitively sense it out. And then when it's time to work, you show up and you do you're the perfect person to have on any set.
Well, you guys need to get back on a set together.
She has an idea. We should talk about it for a Christmas movie in quarantine for Hallmark in Nashville.
Singing.
Oh.
It's actually really good.
Can we sing on it?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was actually thinking like, how do we figure out how to do a movie that stems from all of this? Like, how do we figure out it?
She's got a good one.
It's actually
real. We'll talk after the show.
Okay, let's do it. Happy birthday, Julianne.
Okay.
Gosh, she's the best.
She's the best. I mean, that's why it's why a marriage lasts 19 years.
Dude,
I mean,
19 years.
19 years. We've been married since 2003, so we're married 16 years.
And so in love. So in love.
And in this business, which you know is like designed. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I literally was building a cake with my sons about 4 minutes ago, and my whole afternoon, like all of a sudden I looked and it said 3:58. And I was like, I've got to go and be online. And I wanted to start with Jimi Hendrix. Did it work? Did you
I
hear it?
loved it. I loved it. I was there
Yeah.
from the very beginning. I
You're
loved
waiting.
it.
You're like gently, patiently waiting.
No, I
Okay,
love
I'm
Hendrix.
set up. I'm good to go. I'm a little crooked in the back, but I think it fits today's theme.
Totally.
It's always when you walk into someone's houses and their pictures are a little akimbo, you're like,
Yeah.
we're dealing with,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah, so my ex, it's even weird to call her nanny because Lucy was with us for the last 3 years. So all 3 heart surgeries with my youngest son.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, my 2-year-old had 3 heart surgeries in 2 years. And Lucy was with us like through my pregnancy and through all 3 of the surgeries. She would say that she would know what kind of mental state that I was in by how many Post-its I had put up all over the house. And if there were a lot of Post-its, that she would come in and be like, oh, good, this is going to be a tough day.
It's going to be a tough day.
If there were no Post-its, she'd be like, oh, great. Like, this is going to be a great day.
Isn't that crazy, though?
So mine aren't frames, but they're Post-its.
But they're Post-its. They're visible. Like these little outward showings of the calm. Like brains are like these lakes in our heads.
Yeah.
And either everything is calm and placid and steady and consistent, or it's just this turbulent, like, and you could just, and it's interesting when it starts to go south, you can feel it. And there's like little, I mean, people talk about triggers. They talk about, you have a memory or a dream or something you're watching on, TV, and it's like something that you watch and you're like, and it stems from trauma. It stems from, childhood stuff. Anyway, so I wish that I had this great master plan, but I know that you are so insightful. And I know that you have so much advice to give, and you're so intelligent, especially regarding this subject. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And we are all in quarantine.
Yeah.
And there are people who are they're going a little nutty, and they're like, people are starting to grapple, with how long this is going to last. And I know that we're loosening. Technically, we're allowed this weekend. They're going to start phasing in reentry, and so this is all kind of. But I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to talk.
Yeah.
Open up a dialogue for people for 2 reasons. One, it's good to get information out there. And B, I think it's also a good example to be able to talk about things so that, like, when you start normalizing, you take the stigma away. I mean, I've had we had a person who had manic depression and ended up dying because it was because of the mental illness was so severe that there was no outreach and there was no help and there was no you know what I mean. And so it really does have life and death. The stakes are like, they couldn't be higher. So
they really couldn't. You said it actually perfectly. And earlier you said, oh, somebody was asking me about my dad's health. It's not great. I'll just put it that way. It's not great. I think the hardest thing for me, and I learned this mental health practice when I'll start from the beginning, actually. I was a very happy, positive human who really did not struggle with any mental health whatsoever until I'm so glad you needed this today. All right, girl, we are here for you. Until I had postpartum depression with my first son, who is now 6. And because I had never felt depressed in my life, and because I had never felt disconnected in that way, I didn't know. I thought it was just, is this what moms feel like after they have babies? And then I started noticing that, like, no, other moms feel like in there's, they may be exhausted, but they're like in this dream world with this baby. And I did not feel that way. And it progressively got worse and worse and worse. And I became suicidal, extremely suicidal. All of these, Brene Brown talks about FFTs, and the first F is a curse word, so I won't say it. It's but like effing first time. Right. And when you're in the middle of a FFT, it's important. Now that I know this term that she's taught me, I will be like, oh, I'm in the middle of an FFT. Cool. I now know what to do, which is to give myself lots of compassion, slow things down, really listen to my body. But I didn't know about that when I first entered into postpartum depression, especially the suicidal portion. And I was drowning, and that isolation and that shame ate me alive. I felt like, especially for a person who felt like I could handle anything and I could do anything and I could do it all on my own.
Right.
I could not do this on my own. And months and months and months went by till finally I went to my friend Jen Didi's house, and I broke down, and I was like, something's really wrong with me and I don't know what it is. And I just sobbed in her kitchen. And she was like, yes, honey, something is really wrong with you. And she was like, I think you have postpartum depression. It was the first time that it even occurred to me.
Right.
And I got to tell you, that feeling of being completely disconnected from who you are, the running away, the escaping, the like a rat on acid, like couldn't stop for a second, because if I had to stand still inside the pain that I was feeling and the shame that I was feeling, I was gonna kill myself. And I thought that I would, when actually what I have learned now is that it's the escaping and the running away that leads us to the places that makes us want to jump off the ledge. That the actual safest thing that we can do sometimes is to get really still and to get inside of our body. So you said something that was really important earlier. You said we can feel the shift happening, whether it's sadness or somebody was just saying PPD is real. It's so much, so very, very real.
Legitimately real, yeah.
And, you know, the reason why I started talking about it, you know, I did it on Home and Family. The first time I was on, I was like, let's talk about postpartum depression. And they were like, that seems really sad.
And you're like, yeah, but it could.
Yeah, but you know what? Important. A lot of women have it, and we should talk.
Do you know that postpartum depression, they used to call it hysteria?
Yes.
And they used to give women lobotomies.
Yes.
And they would send shock treatment, electroshock therapy. I mean, really archaic, barbaric. I mean, if you go even further back to the Salem witch trials, like women were being hung and burned, like because of hysteria or because of these emotions, which, like when your body is awash in a different chemical, and it's flooded with that particular chemical, and anything, man, like a rat on acid. And what's interesting about that is an acid, like when that acid takes over that rat's brain, it can't function until it gets clarified. And so sometimes you need to, and there is medicine, and I do think that there's medicine to recorrect and to re-steer what's happening in the brain, and then also that resting and going back. Anyway, you were saying, it was amazing what you're saying. Sorry, keep going.
No, I think that's the reason why I use the term rat on acid, because that's exactly what it feels like. It eats everything from the inside. It eats your brain, it eats your insides until you just like, you can't really function anymore. I was not able to take medication. I'm one of those people that I can't absorb any kind of medication, whether that be pain meds or antidepressants or any of that. So, you know, for me, it was really about, you know, getting help and seeking treatment. And I went to a specialist who really, she specified in postpartum depression. And, you know, the cool thing that I learned about this is that I am no longer afraid when something comes up and I feel something. You were saying that word, you can feel when something begins to shift, because it's not, we think that our brain is the most important part of our body, but we actually have two other brains. We have our gut brain, which is the archaic, goes all the way back to the beginning of time. And then we have our heart brain. Yeah. Our heart has a brain and our gut has a brain. Yeah. And actually, the most important part of our whole entire being is our feeling, is our body. Our body talks to us all day long. But as human beings, we have come so far from learning how to listen to our bodies. Right. We have been taught that the brain is king and our thoughts are king. So you listen to that. But what is true is that our body knows what is true. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so if I would have stood still for a second, even in the beginning of that, to be like, if I was in communication with my body or in practice with, you know, meditation or, you know, sometimes prayer, but with prayer, sometimes we are, you know, speaking towards something. And sometimes with meditation, you're getting still and you're listening, right? Those are very different things, especially in our sensorial systems and the way in which we perceive certain events. But if we're getting still and we're really listening, you can actually feel where tension is in your body. And if you feel it in your body and you sit with it and you go, what is that? Why does my tummy feel this way? Why does it feel all knotted up? Why am I feeling shaky? Why am I feeling anxiety right now? And in the moment when that comes up, if you can just take a pause and be like, don't judge it. And this is the thing that I was saying that I learned so much is in those moments, not to judge what I am feeling. Instead, like a scientist, like an investigator.
Why? Yeah. So what is
to
this?
Listen.
Yeah.
What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah. What is this? Yeah.
Your body is your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So what is my body trying to tell me? Oh, it's trying to tell me that I'm having anxiety. Why am I having anxiety? What is the anxiety about? Oh, you're just listening. Oh, I'm scared. Why am I scared? I'm scared, especially because now in the time of Corona, there's 100 real things to be scared of. Yeah. You know, most of us as human beings before this, a lot of us went through life being anxious or worried or having doubt or being fearful of things that we probably now think like, why was I even scared of that? This is some real stuff to be scared about. Yeah. This is life and death. This is how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to feed my children? What's going to happen? I don't feel like I have any control. The unknown, the unseen. What does it all look like? These are all very, 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 very real things to be scared about. And so the first thing I think I want to tell everyone is, number one, you know, I'm an open book. So if you ever want to reach out to me on Instagram. I will tell you all of the things, like everything that all the trauma that I've been through. Like I will share it, and I will also share anything that I've learned with all of you guys. So that's number one. But the most important thing is that whatever it is that you're feeling right now, it's the human experience. You are not wrong. I'm going to pull up really quick. You know, I've been reading this book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed. And she talks about, essentially she talks about feeling. She has a whole chapter called Feels. And if you guys haven't read this book, please get it. It's called Untamed. She talks about feeling your feelings is hard, but that's what they're there for. Feelings are for feeling, all of them, even the hard ones. The secret is that you're doing it right, and doing it right hurts sometimes. So that's the truth, is that, you know, we get confused sometimes because we sometimes think that like life is supposed to be easy or being broken is somehow wrong. But let's really think about the human experience in general. Do we know anyone who hasn't experienced envy? Anyone who hasn't been hurt by somebody or hurt someone else? Do we know anyone who hasn't, you know, felt shame or doubt or made a mistake or done the wrong thing or any of, like, do we know anyone who's perfect? We all attempt to wake up every day and live this life of perfection and to not be broken. But the truth of the matter is, that's just the human experience. Right. And the moment that we can wrap our brains around the fact that perfection is just not something that we want to be, because the second we're aiming for perfection, we are in pursuit of an ideal that is not real. We are chasing a ghost and we are not living our lives. You know, and I thought that was a really powerful thing when I read it. She broke it down in such a clear way that, you know, our job is not to be in the pursuit of being positive. Our job, hey, Tiffany, she was on my Insta What We Are earlier. Our job is not in pursuit of even being good. It's just of being open. Right. And inside of the openness, that's where the magic happens. That's where the miracles happen. That's where the love of oneself happens. That's where the compassion, the empathy grows. That's where all of that begins to come together.
And can you say the name of the book and the author one more time for
Yeah,
everybody?
Glennon Doyle,
Mm-hmm.
Doyle, and the name of her book is Untamed.
Untamed.
And it
Now,
is so good.
you said something in your story early, which struck me as absolute truth and absolute necessary. You and I have been friends since 2004.
Yeah.
And you've been my roommate twice. You've lived with
Yep.
us on 2
And I
different
did do
occasions.
Caleb's baby shower.
Yeah, you threw a baby shower for Julianne. You came to the hospital, and you were not, if not the first person to meet Caleb outside of our family, you were like right there within, like, I think you were the first person to meet Caleb.
Yeah, I think I was the first person.
Yeah, and so we've shared a lot. And what breaks my heart as your friend is that while you were going through that, your postpartum depression, I was not aware of it. I was not there for you. I didn't know. But what I did know is that you and I had lost track for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think that it's normal because people get busy and they have babies. And so, but I did, and you're one of those people in my life that when I think of you, I'll text you or I'll call you. And so there was a whole thing. But what you did and what you said in this story, and so I think that's interesting, is that I know you and I had no idea what was going on. Like I had no idea the depths of it. We talked about it afterwards in Atlanta, and you filled me in, and I was and hearing about it after the fact is very different than going through that. For
sure. For sure.
But you know, you have Ryan and you have all these other people, but there was this person that you were able to go to.
Yep.
Because I think the most confounding aspect about mental health or mental illness is the secrecy, is the isolation. Yep. And what you were describing was so clear, being like, why am I feeling this way? Why does this, and that feeling of being torn asunder and not knowing, and then all of a sudden relationships start to get pushed at bay because you start feeling like you're different, or that you've got this thing. And I mean, God, can you imagine? I can't imagine being a new mother and having those feelings and not being able to like, just say, hey, this is what's going on. And so I think, I mean, what's amazing to me is that the life-saving element of your story is that you were able to go to Dee Dee's kitchen and be like, hey, this is what's going on. And you had someone who was like, baby girl, you're not alone. Like, this is actually a normal human thing. And I think, I forget which, I'm going to sound like a total nerd right now, but I don't know if it was Cicero, I don't know which philosopher said it. It was one of the old Greeks.
I love your nerdism.
He said, nothing that is human is foreign to me. And so there is nothing that anyone on this planet can go through that we can't relate to at some point. Now, there are heinous acts that take place and we can be like, whoa, I would never do that. However, if you wrap everything back to the human kernel that starts every action on this planet, nothing is foreign to us. No. So, I mean, I remember I used to be in college and I would count tiles, and I don't have OCD, but it was a thing that I did. It made me feel comfortable. It was not something that, but I can imagine that if that got out of hand, you know, then I mean, I know people who were washing their hands before and now they're like, you know what I mean? So,
dude, I know. Well, the interesting thing about the quarantine is that we've been living this kind of life for about 3 years because of Bennett. So I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. You know, I know how to do this thing. And it's really hard. Let's just say it. It's really hard. Yeah. But you hit the nail on the head when you said that you had a person, and I have this list of things that I can, you know, before we get off, I will, you know, that you can do that would help you. And one of them is having a buddy. And Jen was my buddy. And the thing with mental health, that's the most dangerous thing, because we have a society have created so much shame and judgment around people who have mental health. I don't know who started it. I don't know where it came from, but I believe that it came from that idea that believe that it came from the idea that women have to be perfect and that they cannot be broken. They're not allowed to be broken. And so that anything that, you know, comes off of that, and postpartum would be one of those, because in that moment, you're broken. You know, you're not broken, but you are experiencing what feels like brokenness, you know?
Right. It's being out of step with where you're supposed to be.
Can I interject and have Chris read 2 scriptures?
Oh, yeah.
Can you read that and then read it in the Message version?
Yeah. So Jillian wants Psalms 51:17. My sacrifice, of God, isn't a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, you, God, will not despise. And then going through the motions doesn't faze you. Flawless performance is nothing to you. So basically, a flawless performance is nothing to you. So the goal is not a flawless performance.
Exactly.
God doesn't. God, I don't want that. I learned God worship when my pride was shattered, heart shattered lives, ready for love. Don't for a moment escape God's notice. So that's
Julianne, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's Psalms. If you look up Psalms 51:17 in the Message version, that's the message, and it's just right there. It's beautiful. I mean, you know,
when my pride was shattered, heart shattered lives, ready for love. You know, and so many times you have to get broken in order to feel, you know, especially if you want to be, I mean, you and I are artists, and our whole goal is like to tell the most truthful story and to be the most, and if you're a happy-go-lucky kid, it's not to say that you can't be brilliant. And I'm not saying that, so please don't hear me, audience, saying you have to be broken in order to be a great artist, because you don't. But don't feel that being broken is going to limit you and prohibit you from being the best version of yourself, because I feel like sometimes it's, I mean, Julianne and I just went through 5 years of like, I lost my job on a TV show, and you know, it wasn't working for a while, and you could do that. And it's like, we went through, I mean, a hustle beyond like any hustle, a grind beyond any grind that we're still just now. And then of course the quarantine hits, and any gain I was making is now like, I mean, so I'm with everybody.
You're like, we're
else
on lockdown.
Yeah, I'm like,
nobody spend any money.
Yeah, I'm like, don't spend a dime. But it's like, but that brokenness and that, like, on my own personal little level of it, like, it wasn't part of depression, and it's not, you know, manic depression or anything like that. But it was like, but being financially strapped is in a way, you know, it's like there's a couple things. Your body can be sick, your brain can be sick, or your pocketbook can be sick.
Yeah.
It's like it shuts you down on a social level, because all of a sudden you're like, I can't afford to go out and have dinner with you guys. So you're limiting your social activities. You're becoming isolated. You often are embarrassed by the fact that you're not doing, and then you start thinking, well, why aren't I like an earner? Why aren't I crushing it? Yeah. There's all these little things that go. So mental health, I think, is very similar to like, that feeling of inadequacy, that feeling of like, I'm not like everybody else, and so I don't deserve to take part in everything.
That's so true. And it's all on the spectrum of mental health. Like, yes, there are, you know, there is the, you know, the really difficult aspects of mental health when you get into manic depression and schizophrenia and stuff like that. But it also runs the gamut of, you know, being in a situation like you and Julianne were, that Ryan and I have been in too, where I was like, I don't know how we're going to buy food next week. Like, I don't know how that's going to happen. You know, we've also been there as well. And that also can really do a number on your mental health, because it does start to seep into the feeling like you didn't do something right, or you did something wrong, or the universe is punishing you, or God is punishing you, or
that's not
which is never the case. It's
never
always
the case.
Just like bad things happen sometimes. Really uncomfortable, like this virus, like a bad, horrible situation is happening. Yeah. And it's up to us to decide how we're going to move through it. You know, I mean, it's so interesting because, you know, going through the postpartum, and then also that made me really and truly deal with the trauma that I had experienced and the abuse that I experienced as a child growing up. I had never really dealt with that until I got into, you know, some really deep therapy with postpartum depression. And it was all trauma that I'd never spoken openly about, you know, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And it just, like, me feeling like in that moment, like I have to get out of this trap. There is no shame in having postpartum. There is no shame in having been physically abused or sexually abused. I didn't do that to myself, you know, like I had to really sit with that and really work myself out of some really tough things. But I'm going to tell you, the greatest gift I've ever been given in my life is the hard stuff that I had to go through. I would not be the person that I am today. I would not have been the mother that could stand by Benny's bedside when he was screaming and in pain and not knowing if he was going to survive or not survive. the things that happened to me before that allowed me to stand still in that moment, time and time and time again. And, you know, a lot of the things that I learned, oh, somebody says God never promised it would be easy. That's so true. That is part of the life, man. God never promised that it was going to be easy. This is just life. Yeah. So like in those moments with Benny, and I apply some of the techniques to go to this virus and being isolated, which is, you know, number one, educate, learn all you can, prepare all you can in terms of just logistics, right? You know, where are we at with the virus? What's happening with the area? Is it safe? Is it unsafe right now? Should we wear the mask? We need to order the mask, like get the food, like do all of those logistical things. Right. Outside of that, the futurizing, you got to stay out of the futurizing. Like, what's going to happen in 6 months? What's going to happen in a year?
Tomorrow take care of itself.
Really and truly, as hard as that is, and it is really hard, I got to tell you, because I still deal with it every single day with Bennett, you know, on a very real life and death lesson. My mentor always said, once you've been to the show, and by that she means the life and death show, you can never unknow what you now know. And I think the truth, you know, Glennon in her book talks about the ache. And the ache is the knowing and the realization that life is precious and life is fragile and it does end. And that ache sometimes keeps us from living our lives. And for her, what she learned is that ache is what she then learned needed to make her stay in the present and live her life.
That's awesome.
You know, which was such a beautiful thing. And that's exactly when I read that chapter, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I learned, was that standing next to my kid while he was fighting for his life, or holding my grandfather's hand when he was transitioning, or, you know, being with my dad when he doesn't know who I am, and standing there. And that is sacred space. Yeah. It is sacred space. And it is really hard to do, but we can do hard things, you know? And if we're futurizing constantly and worrying about what's going to happen a month or 2 months or whatever, we just don't know. That's the truth. The truth that everybody is learning is that we have less control than we thought we did.
Right.
You know?
Well,
and that reality is really hard to be in.
Well, I did a little Good Friday, one of these back on Good Friday.
Yeah.
And I just, and my whole thing was about death. Like the whole, because it was such a poignant thing, like Good Friday, Christ goes on the cross, the whole thing. And I read some of the stuff.
Some of my favorite sermons are Good Friday.
Really. Yeah. And I'll tell you something, like the idea of this big cloud of death sweeping over the planet. I mean, they showed a picture of a stadium, Michigan Stadium had 75,000 people about capacity, and that so many people have died in America from the coronavirus in the last 2 months. And so, and that's just our country. That's not including the rest of the world. And so I think the first time that a human starts to inch his way towards, or her way towards, wisdom is when they confront the idea that life is ephemeral, that we are in a period of transition. We only have so much time. And sometimes we can grab a hold of that, and sometimes it freaks us the heck out.
Oh, dude, even as you're saying it, my body right now is going.
Yeah, and it's like if you can say, I'm gonna go, but in the meantime, I'm gonna love as hard as I can. I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna love everybody that I come across. It's no accident. And what I love about social media is that we're finding, like, you and I have this unbelievable bond because we've worked together and we have this human connection. But we're building that with these people, these strangers who were strangers, but like over time, I've gotten to know people on social media, and there's this ever building sort of bridge of human connection and connectivity, and of love, of being able to say, I see you, I hear you, I love you, like, you're okay.
That's the we can do hard things. Yeah. You know, she talks about that often, and I'm in her book right now, which is why I bring
about the list of stuff. Like, do you have a couple things that people could practice or do if they need it?
So, well, number one, before I get off, I'm going to give you a list of organizations. If you really feel like you need to reach out, I'm going to give you a list of books, and I'm going to give you some other sources of help. But this is just a short list of things that I came up with. Number one, manage your expectations during all of this. I think that's a really big thing, especially for those of us who have kids and those kids are in school. and you're trying to do work and you're trying to do school with them and you're trying to cook dinner and you're trying to do all of these things and be all of these things, you got to manage your expectations. I fell into the same trap, and I can't tell you how many days I've had to just shut it down. Just shut it all down and cancel calls that needed to happen, or cancel meetings that needed to happen, or even canceled school days for Hudson because he was feeling the weight and the anxiety of all of this.
Yeah.
And because kids are feeling it so deeply. And I'm like, you know what? We're not doing school today. Nope. We are going to have a self-care day. And we are all going to, as a family, do things that, you know, involve taking care of ourselves. So I've shut everything down and done that. So manage your expectations, number one. Number two, feel your feelings. Feel them, acknowledge them. So when something comes up, worry, fear, panic, doubt, any of those things, even joy, enthusiasm. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling really happy. Should I be feeling really bad right now? Because the world is in a place, whatever it is that you're feeling, acknowledge. And if it's something that feels really unsafe to you or uncomfortable, grab a buddy, have a buddy, and tell that buddy. Okay. And if you don't feel like you can tell a buddy, I'm going to give you a list of organizations that you can call. They are total strangers. You can pick up the phone and you can call them, and they will be there for you. They will listen to you. So feel your feelings, acknowledge them, reach out to somebody. Coping mechanisms. Okay. So we got to put some coping mechanisms in place. And this is really hard for many of us because our parents didn't teach us coping mechanisms. High school and college didn't teach us coping mechanisms, and neither does society. So, but this is what the majority of people's coping mechanisms look like. Wine, weed, watching too much TV, porn, staying on the TV too much on the news, porn. Like, there's a lot of coping mechanisms out there that are not totally healthy. I mean, not great. Wine is great, but if you're doing it every single day, probably not the best idea. Right. You know, so
was it Cicero that said moderation and everything? I know it wasn't Cicero. But moderation and everything.
Let's just say it was Cicero.
It's always Cicero.
It's got to be. So, you know, you can put a couple of those coping mechanisms in place. My favorite is to turn within, always, to just get really still. Sometimes it's prayer. I wake up every day. I listen to a guided prayer. Church Home is, you can go on this app called Church Home, and you can download it every day. You can be woken up with a guided prayer. I love it. It starts my day great. But then also throughout the day, I have to check in with my body. I have to get still, even if it's for 5 minutes where I just sit and I breathe. You can walk in nature. You can take 15 minutes to go for a walk. If you can't go for a walk, do 15 minutes of stretching in your house. Find a way, something that feels really good and that is healthy in order to cope. Yeah. If you also follow me, I give a lot of coping mechanisms out. Number 4. Oh, this is practice being in your body as much as possible. Okay. That is a coping mechanism. Dude, I cannot stress this enough. When it comes to trauma, this is a very traumatic thing that we're experiencing right now. The safest place to be is inside your own body. We are taught that that is not true, but everybody who says that is wrong. The safest place that you can be is inside your body. That is where I feel and I hear God the deepest. And that is my conversation. What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to say right now? Constantly be in communication with how you feel and how your body feels. Yeah. Prioritize your health. Okay. Physical health, mental health. So this goes along with get sleep, eat well, move your body, all of that stuff. Create boundaries. Learn your triggers, right? You said that earlier about triggers. Learn your triggers, and you have to create boundaries, especially with your kids and your husband. And that might be, you know, saying to your husband, I need this night off. You know, I need a night off where I can, you know, go in my room and read a book or watch Real Housewives or take a long bath or whatever it is. You have to really create boundaries, because sometimes in extreme circumstances, that's the first thing to go. Right. And you become overwhelmed.
Especially if you're somebody who constantly wants to do and give and give and give, and you feel that need to like constantly show up.
Yes.
It's got to be like, guys, I'm taking a break.
I'm taking a 5.
Little me time.
Little me time. Also, you know, for some people, you got to know this about yourself. My husband can watch the news all day long, and it does not affect him. He can compartmentalize. I cannot.
Yeah, me neither.
So for a week, I've been off the news because I had to take a break.
Yeah.
I absorb. I'm an empath. I just get so overwhelmed with the things I need to do for people. And sometimes I just have to take a break. So know that about yourself and be like, why am I having anxiety? If you're listening to your body's going to tell you, oh, I'm getting overwhelmed. I have to turn the news off. I have to turn that off.
Yeah.
So routine is your friend, especially for your kids. So whatever routine that you had, as much as you can do before the virus, maintain that. Meaning, for example, with the drinking, if you only had a drink on like Friday and Saturday night, or maybe just Saturday night, don't drink Sunday through Thursday or Sunday through Friday and have your Saturday night.
Right.
Try to stabilize any way possible and keep a routine. For my kid, for all you moms out there homeschooling, I have a dry erase board, and every single day, I write down what we are doing at all times. So my son, who, you know, he has behavioral things that we go through with my 6-year-old. So he needs structure. So he can go up to that whiteboard and he can go, oh, I have phonics right now. And then I only have one more thing, and then I get a break and I get to play. Yep. And, you know, giving him that structure and me that structure is very helpful. That's another. This is a big one. Connect. Do what Chris and I are doing, you know? And Chris, we can have as many of these as possible if they're helpful to people. Connect to people, talk to people in any way that feels comfortable and feels like nurturing to you. Whatever feels nurturing, just connect to someone. And this one's really big for me because anytime in my life where I have started to feel worried or anxious or any of that, the first thing I ask myself after my guided prayer, the first thing I say is, how can I be of service today? How can I be of service?
Sure.
Because, you know, sometimes being of service means if you know somebody who is single and you're married with kids, or maybe you don't have kids, but you're married and you're not alone in your house, but you know someone who is single, reach out to that person. Yeah. Say, hey, just checking in on you. Anything I can do? Want to FaceTime? Want to jump on the phone? You know, that's an easy thing that you can do for people. So being a person of service, donating, if you have the financial ability to do it, donate something, even if it's $5 to somebody, you know, send masks to a hospital. There's 1,001 ways to be of service. I always say, embrace the big and small miracles. Really, really look around because they happen every day, even within the pain. If you are open enough, you are seeing big and small miracles happen all around you, and it keeps you going. And that's it. That's it on my list for right now. Let me also go through for you guys, if you are really in a place where you want to reach out and you don't feel like you could do it with a buddy or even your husband. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't even reach out to my husband when I was in the middle of postpartum depression because I felt...
You probably didn't want him to think like that you weren't being a good mom.
I didn't want him to think that I was unsafe for our child and that I wasn't being a good mom. And I didn't want to... I was so scared to tell him what I was going through. And, you know, now I know differently. But like in that moment, I didn't. I couldn't even reach out to him. And that is true for a lot of women. So, you know... You can go to the National Institute of Mental Health, NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. I really love because they have hundreds of local affiliates and chapters. So they're really able to, you can call and say, this is the city or the town that I'm living in, and they can actually give you the closest place that you can call for help. They're really great. There's also the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There's the Child Mind Institute if you are dealing with something specifically with your kid. You know, that's really hard. For kids, this is also really, really hard. They are feeling our anxiety. And for some kids who, you know, like even for Hudson, who is incredibly sensitive, you know, I had to touch base with our, you know, family psychologist to be like, hey, you know, we're really struggling with Hudson right now. what are some things that we can do, which is hence the dry erase board, you know, give him a sense of control in his life.
Right,
Give
control
him
and structure.
exactly. Most kids are going to freak out because they feel like they don't have control, just like adults. So give them something to be in control of. But the Child Mind Institute is really good for that. And then there's also Anxiety and Depression Association of America. So that is strictly for anxiety and depression. And that's a really good one for people to reach out to. Books. The Body Keeps the Score is one of the best books that I've ever read in terms of dealing with trauma, grief, PTSD. I'm going to say it again. The Body Keeps the Score. I am convinced, because of the research and because of all the studying that I've now done on trauma, that this is the greatest thing that we're up against really and truly in mental health, not just with our veterans that are coming back, but we have been taught, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and suck it up and just go on your way. We're human beings. Yeah. We're not meant to do that.
Yeah.
We are naturally, innately strong and courageous and brave. We are already doing that just by living.
Right.
You know, so when we go through something hard, why are we supposed to go through it in a vacuum and just pick ourselves up and move on? No.
Right.
We are supposed to ask for help. And it talks a lot about how trauma gets stuck in our body and the effects of PTSD. And a lot of people are going to be dealing with that through this quarantine.
Yes.
The other one is Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. It's a great book, also about trauma. And then the Complex PTSD Workbook, which is incredible. So Waking the Tiger.
And that's something people can work through. A workbook is something they can go and do. They can actually
go through. All of them can be ordered on Amazon, and Waking the Tiger and The Body Keeps the Score you can also listen to on Audible if you want, or get the Kindle version of it. And then other sources, just literally on Instagram. You post really positive things. You're in communication with the people who follow you all the time. Glennon Doyle, Elizabeth Gilbert. My friend Jen and I have a site called What We Are. We talk about a lot of this stuff on Instagram. It's Welcome to What We Are. We talk a lot about it. Really try and find people, if you're on Instagram, who are positive and really reaching out to connect with you guys. So that's a lot of my materials for now.
Would you do me a huge favor? Would you
an email to you?
Yeah, will you just text me, like, if they have handles or whatever, and I'll just post it I'll go in and edit the post of your picture and add those as a link so people could just go to that page and tap into it.
Would love to.
I'm gonna close this out because the hour is almost up. Seb, there's a girl named there's a person Seb in England who we were gonna talk, and you
got to talk to her.
Time. Well, we've run out of time, so
I'm so sorry.
Get him next time. It's okay. It's perfectly okay. You and I are going for a walk on May 16th.
Oh yeah, let's talk about this.
Which is kind of amazing. So we're going to do a 6K walk for World Vision, and we're trying to raise money. And 6 kilometers is about the distance that most women and like young girls in Africa have to walk from their village to the nearest well to get fresh water. So we're doing a walk on May 16th. I'm going to post it on Twitter. I'll put you on there. And if people want to donate or people want to walk with us, I think until the 11th, you can sign up and walk with us.
That would be the best part. Could you imagine if you've got 263 people right now watching.
Can you imagine
if all 263 people walked with us, how cool that would be?
How amazing would that be, right? We can all get a jersey and take little pictures. So I'm going to get that out ASAP.
Yeah.
But you are awesome. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with me and with my friends here on Instagram. On the Polaha Chautauqua, and thank you for your advice. I'm going to have you come back because it's just an endless amount. You're just a font of knowledge. And then if you do get me those things, I'll go ahead and I'll post them because I think they would be helpful to people.
Yeah, they would be really, really, really helpful to people. And I'll even add more stuff.
Send it.
Guys, thank you guys so much for listening. And Chris, I love you so much. I love your family so much. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's an honor and a complete joy to spend any amount of time with you whatsoever. And I just love you.
Love you too, kid. All right. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, babe. Bye.
Bye.
Nikki is awesome. All right, guys, I am going to wrap it up today because it is my wife's birthday, and I've got a little Zoom call to jump onto. So, Seb, you and me, we're going to do it again some point real soon. Next week, I want, if you have a kid who was in high school and they were going to do a musical, or a middle schooler and they were going to do a musical and it got canceled because of COVID-19, and they have a song that they know or a dance that they've learned and they want to share it, next week is the week for that. You guys are incredible. Thank you so much for spending an hour with me today. Go out there and have, be good to yourself. I know this is hard, but when we're in it together, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to sign off. Bye-bye.